Well, how's it going? Um, Today I want to talk about the impact that AI is going to have on universities, right? This is one of those areas where the impact I think is going to be dramatic. Um, Maybe not immediately, maybe not steadily across the next 5 years, but I think 10 years from now, the university structure will be getting a serious challenge and maybe even falling apart. Um, it is what it is. There's some things I got to talk about here for the immediate impact of the university of AI on the universities. Primarily, the impact that everybody's worried about right now is college professors. Um, is AI generated essays and content? Um, you now have the capacity, or students have the capacity, to pretty much input essay questions and prompts into ChatGPT or other AIs and get pretty fantastic essays written for them, right? And depending on how well they write their prompt, um, they can hit the nail on the head. And the content that the AI can produce is basically indistinguishable, right? It's hard to pick out because it's not plagiarized. It is generating a new thing, right? Depending on the prompt, but it is very good at making arguments, at compiling, the necessary data and context from essay prompts. So it's quite good in that regard. And when I say it's hard to detect, I mean I have put AI responses back into the AI and asked it, this is ChatGPT, and I asked it, how do I know if this is AI generated? And it's content generated by ChatGPT, and it couldn't tell the difference, right? So as far as the tools that go for spotting AI generated content, I would be very wary. What you're really spotting is that they screwed up their prompt and they're not answering the right question, or they're putting in the wrong information. Depending on how good they are at prompting, they're going to get an accurate response, and it is largely, you can tell the AI to add in 5% grammatical errors and it will do so. You can tell it to write it as a high school student and it will do so. So extremely difficult to catch AI and extremely easy to use. Now, you can make adjustments if you're in the classroom, right? If you're, depending on the kind of class you're teaching, if it's a survey course in an auditorium, you're probably doing Scantrons anyways. But as far as essays, this makes things very problematic. This is particularly true in the online learning environment. What has become very popular is online and asynchronous environments, right? Where the students are really just engaging with the content through the learning software, right? Generally Canvas, right? In this environment, having them write essays, it's impossible to check up on them, right? So any essay you give them, they can just go feed it into the AI until they get the response that they want. Um, and there's not a lot you can do about that, right? Other than not assign essays, right? And a lot of other work, like I'm a history professor, so I assign a lot of essays, right? Biology professors want you to know certain formulas. Well, it's impossible to check if you know the formula, right? Until you get to a live test, right? So there's a lot of content, in the asynchronous environment. There's really no way to keep an eye on what they're doing. Even if it's a quiz, right? They can open up another browser. They can use their phone and look up the questions on that way, even if you do lock down the browser. So it's a problem, right? Now, this is not the only problem. People are very worried about the student side, but the bigger problems are a little further down the road, and they're the bigger questions, which I'm going to talk about. Like all of these, you can make adjustments to. What becomes more difficult is what follows, right? Is the role of AI in the actual academic process for professors. You have students that are going to rely on AIs to complete assignments, do their research, and everything like that, right? You're also going to have professors that begin to use the AI to write their monographs, to do their research, right? As the new AI um, tools become available, right? Things that can read academic journals like that and give you all the citations you need for certain information, and then compile them and write them for you, right? You can expedite this whole writing process um, of writing publishable articles in journals, and they are going to do that, right? And on the flip side of that, you also have the ability to now check the research that professors are doing, right, that academics do, and you're already getting people busted for falsifying their research. That's going to increase, right? You're going to find that, unfortunately, there are academics that falsify their research across various fields, and you're going to very quickly have a way to check it. What you're not going to be able to do is find out which academics are using AI to do all their research and write all their papers, and you're going to get a couple, probably more than a few, that just begin firing out academic papers, right, that they're not really writing, right, and not necessarily doing all the research for, right? It's AI doing the research, and then the journals are going to use AI to check the references, and you're going to quickly getting to a point where students are using AI, professors are using AI to grade the content, and academic journals are using AI to check the content created by all these other AIs, right? And in a field where your output in terms of academic papers is kind of what gets you tenure, not kind of, directly what gets you tenure. How do you assign tenure, right? How do you judge who's valuable and who's not, right? Who's really doing research and who isn't, right? Because now you just have people, you have the AI doing most of the heavy footwork, right? So it's going to get tough. It's going to get ugly in that regard as well. And it gets better. The fact is that if you want to grade essays, if you want to grade anything, right, the AI is better than you. And this is what, professors aren't going to want to hear, but the AI, ChatGPT 4 basically knows everything, right? And anything you feed it, it has such a vast, has exposure to such a vast amount of information that there is no way you can compete against it, right, as a human being. And the whole purpose of a professor is to be a content expert, right? They're hired because of all the stuff that they know. Well, none of them know even a fraction of what AI knows, right? More importantly, or rather just as importantly, the AIs can do better grading, right? Try feeding it, if you get a 20-page paper, you can feed that whole thing into ChatGPT-4 and give it a prompt, say, I want it to grade it for this, 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 and this, for content, grammar, structure, and specify, and I want the output, how you analyze it, put into this kind of output, right? And it will do all that. And it will give better feedback than 98% of professors ever do, right? It is a better teacher than you, right? You already have academic AIs being pushed out. Khan Academies, Khanmigo, I believe it's called. If you look at this instructional teacher AI, it is fantastic, right? It is better than you are as a professor. So you've got challenges to how you're going to do research, how research is evaluated, and how you teach, right? So if the AI can teach, it can grade, it can research, it can verify, and all of that can be tracked, the grades can all be tracked, right? It's unbiased. It doesn't make excuses for any kind of thing, right? It's always 100% on the go, right? It's never slacking in the grading, right? You can believe the AI when it says you got an A, because you can track everything that student has ever written and what the feedback was for it without ever engaging the professor, right? So what's the university for then? What are the professors for? Why do you even have them, right? And what inevitably you'll have to fall back on, right, is finding those sectors where that personal touch is still necessary, right? Some kind of that hands-on training is still important, right? If you want to do chemistry work, you still need to go mix chemicals, and somebody has to be there to supervise you, right? But if you need to study, the sort of book aspect of it, and just learning biology, chemistry, finance, academic, or accounting, right? All of that can be automated into the AIs, and they will do a better job than the professors do. So the people that are coming out being trained by the AIs are going to be better prepared than what they were from the professors, right? And that's the part that the university professors are not ready to deal with, right? And they're going to fight it. Who knows how successful they will be, but they are going to begin integrating these things into the universities, right? And so universities really are going to have to shift how they approach things, because you can automate things. You can create an online university with an instructional AI that will evaluate all sorts of stuff better than you do, right? At 5% of the cost, right? I mean, you can have an online university that potentially has hundreds of thousands of students, right? And doesn't have to pay, it pays 95% less professors and staff. That's going to be impossible to compete with as a university, right? You can't charge people, $30,000 for a degree when they're going to be able to do it online for $20 a month. There's no competing with that, right? So the university absolutely has to adapt. They're going to take massive hits to enrollment. I don't think there's any way around that. And in the next 10 years, that's probably what's going to happen. We'll see how they adjust. It's impossible to see what adjustments they're going to make. If education is going to become a boutique, pursuit, not necessary for jobs, right? Because you can have a corporation create a training for their own training and just funnel you through their own training, right, at a minimal cost, right? And so they can just identify you through an IQ test or whatever, and then boom, they'll educate you how they want, right, for a minimal cost. So definitely there's going to be shifts in curriculum, in offerings, in structures, and a massive decline in enrollment. The other part of this is that, and the universities won't have any recourse to adjust for this, but a lot of those white collar jobs that universities train you for are going away. So if there's no demand from that side, like, we don't need to go to university to get a white collar job that doesn't exist anymore, right? Never mind needing a degree, they don't need you for the AIs doing those jobs. So less people are inherently going to go to universities anyways, right? Pretty critical changes coming in that regard. So and this is what I'm saying, do you even need universities? I don't think so. Unfortunately, I don't think so. As a pursuit in human civilization, sure, they're great. They do have a value. But the reality is, if you ask students, all of them, right, 99% of them, would you be at the university if it wasn't going to help you get a job? They wouldn't be going. That's why people go to university, and those jobs aren't going to be there. And the instruction that you get isn't going to be as valuable. They don't need you to teach them. So this is going to be dramatic. The hit that's coming down for the educational system in general is going to be unprecedented. I would say all options are on the table. Everything from a complete adjustment in education to just the eradication of the university system as we know it, right? And maybe even public education, right? Homeschooling just became massively more accessible, right? And better, right? Because the university teaches you, or the AIs rather, teach you one-on-one, right? This is solving Bloom's 2 sigma problem, right? Everybody has their own fantastic personal tutor that knows everything that there's ever been to know. There's no way to compete with that, right? At a cost that is basically nothing. So we'll see what happens. I definitely think that there's just no way around this one. This one is coming down the pipes, and it is going to be massive. It is massive changes coming to the university system, to the education system in general. You're going to have to shift to, maybe teaching people how to fix cars at university, teaching people how to work on things. Those manual labor jobs are going to take a much greater stake and role in education. Who knows what it is that's going to replace the university if it dies, right? What the university is going to be about. People aren't going to show up in the thousands to study literature, right? Not at the cost that it's being offered. Not when you can do that from home through the AI, through something that knows more about everything. So it is what it is. keep in touch. Stay tuned for more. I will be talking a lot more about AI in the coming days. So I will see you around. Just my thoughts. Feel free to comment. See what you think.